everyone, and welcome to volume 6 of the Scrappy Blanket Diaries. My name is Jen. I'm ndjen04 on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Ravelry, and I am so glad that you have joined me here over on the channel. If you've been following along this series, you will know I am on a quest to finish my Scrappy blankets, and who knows, probably start some new ones along the way. We'll see. But if you watched last episode, you will know that I finished Aurora's Scrappy blanket. So this was the granny square blanket that I was outlining in a continuous join as you go method. I finished it for the Down Cellar Studio pigskin party that just wrapped up, and I couldn't be happier with it. In fact, I'm filming this right after I filmed that last little bit from the last episode. But now it is time to move on to Zelda's Scrappy blanket. And before I do that, I should probably mention Musselburgh hat by Zelda Teague in the Gauge Dye Works Solar System colorway. And I should mention, I don't know if I've mentioned this before when I've worn this, but this particular yarn, I remember when I looked it up to link it in a prior video, but I don't know that I mentioned it on the video itself, but it comes in a couple of different put-ups, one in a way to make it as socks and another to do it as a Musselburgh hat. So you get the full, solar system pattern in the Musselburgh hat itself. This is the Exoskeleton Cowl by Shana Cohen in some magpie fibers for the main color, and then the stripes are a deconstructed fade sock skein from Shirley Bryan Yarn Company. And then this is the New York cardigan. I don't remember the name of the designer. It'll be on the screen. I didn't look it up between filming the last segment of last episode and this one, which probably should have. In Madeline Tosh DK Twist in the Winter Wheat colorway. So what are the plans for Zelda's blanket? So Zelda's blanket, I actually started just about a year ago. I did look at in my notebook here. It was March 8th of 2024 when I started Zelda's blanket. And hers is a checkerboard pattern here. The contrast color is Lola Bean Yarn Company and I'm a Little Lad Who Loves Berries and Cream. And then the other squares are various leftovers, countdown calendars, etc. All DK weight, similar to Aurora's blanket. And hers, she would like to have it be 13 squares wide by 23 rows long for a total of 299 squares. Now, I've mentioned before in previous episodes that I'm not going to have enough of this contrast color to continue the checkerboard for 23 rows. I will have enough to do 13. And then she's picked out another color, which when I get to that point, I will show you for the other 10 rows. And this section will be in the middle, and there'll be 5 rows on this end and 5 rows on this end in the other colors. So we sat down this morning before school, Zelda and I had made myself, again, just like I did for the other one, a little calendar to kind of keep track of my progress, to try to kind of see what was reasonable. I don't have a spreadsheet for this one yet, but chances are I will eventually put a spreadsheet together. But I was able to kind of just do this, with a good old-fashioned pen and paper and pencil. So as of yesterday, actually, just not that I need to track this on a Monday, but I've been tracking the other one on a Monday. So as of yesterday, I had 8 full rows of the blanket done. I did do 2 more yesterday, but as of Monday, I had 8 full rows. So that was 104 squares, and I need 195 left to go, which sounds like a lot, but I just did 294 on Aurora. So I can do this, and I could kind of keep a similar pace and keep moving forward. And I have figured out that if I crochet or set a goal of around 40 squares per week, I can probably get this done by the 17th of March. So by St. Patrick's Day, not that that means anything, but it just happened to be 5 weeks. 5 weeks from yesterday. And that seems pretty reasonable. Now, unlike Aurora's blanket, where I could just whip up the squares and I could just pull aside some minis for the day, whip up the squares, set them aside, and then, eventually sit down and attach a row. Zelda's is a join the squares as you go technique or method is what I'm doing. So I crochet 3 rounds, and then on the 4th round, I'm attaching the squares. I will, as in the past, link the video that I used to learn that technique down below. And I will probably, just like I did for Aurora's blanket, I will film a little video showing how I'm attaching the squares. It might not be this week, but maybe next week I will film that so you can see how I'm actually doing it in practice. And so this one is a little less portable, and it seems odd to call a blanket portable, but when you're knitting a modular, or listen to me knitting, when you're making, crocheting, knitting, whatever, a modular project where you have blocks or squares or whatever it is that you are then later attaching together, those smaller pieces can be portable. And so with Aurora's, if we were out and about on the weekend, I would just grab a project bag with mini skeins, my crochet hook, and a pair of scissors, and could whip up a couple of squares just in the car on the way to wherever we were going that day. Where this one, because that final round is in that same yarn, it's not as conducive to being portable. And I did think about this. I could still bring a bunch of minis, crochet up those first 3 rounds, put a locking stitch marker in that last stitch, but I've got to figure out a way to not get it too tangled. But I'll think about that and figure out if I could do that. And then, when I'm home, can attach, that final round. It wouldn't necessarily work out for, the contrast part of the checkerboard, but for the minis that are from the leftovers and the countdown calendars, thinking as I'm talking, and I might be able to find a way. If I could find a way to not get it all tangled in the bag, it's a possibility. So maybe it can still be a little bit portable. And then when I'm home, just attach, like the next square here will be the peachy, contrast color, and then a mini, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll have to think about that. But I think reasonably 39 squares, well, this was 39 squares per week because that's 3 full rows. If I do 3 full rows per week, times 5 weeks is 15 rows, and I'm on row 8. Yeah, 8. That math checks out. So that is the goal for right now. Then the other way I kind of set myself up for success, and again, if you've been following along, you know that even on Aurora's blanket, I think I was talking about both blankets at once at one point, trying to clear any potential hurdles is something that really helps me to keep motivated on a big project like this, because I am the type of person that if I hit a roadblock, that project is set aside. Hence this one that's been on the go for nearly a year. Things just happen. Either I get distracted by a new project, or my attention focuses elsewhere because for whatever reason. So one of the things I am doing is, just like with Aurora, when the finished squares were done for her blanket and I was ready to attach a row, I would have her arrange the squares in the color order that she wanted. For Zelda's, again, because the squares aren't kind of pre-made for her to do that, I'm having her go through the box of yarn and picking out the next squares. And just like with Aurora's that I was putting them on the crochet hook, this is just a straight knitting needle, I don't really use straights very much at this point, but I still have them from years and years and years ago. And I made myself almost like a little skewer of minis in the order that she wants them attached to her blanket. And then for the rest of the yarn, I did go through any of the leftovers from Aurora's blanket. Once she had as many squares in that color that she wanted in the blanket, I had a big basket that I was putting aside, again, because I was going to use them for Zelda's blanket. And then I did a little bit of math to figure out, I think I needed 90 some odd squares, because again, with Zelda's in the contrast color, I don't need as many of the minis and leftovers that I did for Aurora's blanket. And so what I did is I actually took the box from my Lola Bean sneaker countdown calendar, which is where a lot of these yarns are coming from this year. And I'm using that to store Zelda's yarn. So I've got the contrast yarn in here. She has some minis that she had picked out from Fiber Festival of New England back in the fall. So those are in here for her. And then counted them out to make sure, one, these are the colors she really loves, and two, that I would have enough. And certainly I have more than enough. In fact, there's still some bigger skeins from the leftovers from the border yarns from Aurora's blanket and whatnot. So again, less having to figure out, oh, am I going to have enough yarn? I know these leftovers have enough. So Zelda's squares take about 7 grams of yarn, because they include, again, it's slightly bigger than Aurora's. It's 1 round bigger than Aurora's, because her squares took 4 grams. Zelda's squares take 7. And so I know each of these are at least 7 grams. And then thinking ahead to the next Scrappy blanket. So I've got one like this for myself, but it is an even bigger square. It's 5 round, is a 5 round. Solid granny square, again, with a different contrast yarn. And so I need 10 grams for mine. So what I'm going to do is, I know if there are any that Zelda wants to repeat in her blanket, I won't have enough left over. But if she just wants one, I know I can set those aside for the next one. That'll be on the go. So I think I'm going to be in a good spot with Zelda's blanket, and I hope that you will follow along in this. I called it a quest earlier. I like that. I was like, oh, I should have thought of that earlier. But this little quest of mine to work through my Scrappy blankets and get them finished, because again, my kids are super excited about them. I think I shared in maybe the first volume of this series that when I was sharing the blankets during Vlogmas, I think it was when I filmed those, how even Zelda before this, I mean, this is clearly not the size of a blanket yet, but she would grab it and snuggle with it at night and stuff like that. So again, the kids are very excited about it. Real quick, I was about to wrap up, but I did want to mention, I do think I'm going to put a border on Zelda's. I'm going to see when I finish how I feel about it. But I did notice that on these edges, I should have been attaching the corners, and in some spaces, I don't know if I just wasn't paying that close attention, I did not attach the corners. And I could go back and sew them together. I don't know if that, see here, this one is attached. See, this corner is attached, but this one is not. And I don't know, honestly, not sure what I was thinking as I was doing that, but this, you know, it might just look nicer with a nice finished border. Whereas because Aurora's rows are all, you know, they have a border, I didn't feel the need to add an additional border to her. So stay tuned. We'll see how that plays out. But again, thank you so much for joining me on this little adventure, for all of the encouragement, the comments, the likes, the subscribes, the shares, all of the things. And I hope your crafting is treating you well, and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.